What's up, everybody? We got some breaking news. Dana White and the UFC have just announced on social media UFC 310 taking place in December for the final pay-per-view of the year. The headliner, Belal Muhammad defending his title against Shavkat Rakhmonov. Dude's been on a tear, finishing everybody in his path. And then the co-main event, another title fight. Alexandre Pantoja defending the flyweight title against Kai Asakura. The dude, they just signed him straight from Ryzen right into a UFC flyweight title shot. I mean, this is never, I don't think this has ever happened in UFC history, signing someone from an outside promotion, throwing him right into a title fight. This is insanity. This is crazy. I cannot believe that this is happening. I mean, if I was going to say any division that it would happen in, probably the flyweight division, because it's been one that's needed some life to it. And Kai Asakura, whether you know who he is or not, is a huge star in Japan when it comes to the fight scene. We also have some other fights. Vicente Luque versus Nick Diaz, the return of Nick, going to be taking place on this card as well. That was supposed to happen on the Fight Night card back a few months ago. They had to reschedule. And then we have Gane versus Alexander Volkov taking place as well. So what I want to do is discuss all of these fights because, man, this is crazy. This is a crazy event to kind of close out the year because, we'll start with the main event here because Belal Muhammad, he's backing up everything he said, right? I always like when we get a new champion who says, I want to be active. I want to go out there. I want to fight the who's who. I want to become the GOAT of the division. And then I want to become a GOAT of the sport. And Belal is backing up the chatter, right? Everyone was saying how boring he is, all these different things. Well, now he's the champ. Now he's dripping with confidence. Now he's, roasting people on social media. Now he's, chattering and he's starting to back up the talk because look, he just fought not that long ago. Beat Leon Edwards to win the 170-pound title. Absolutely dominated Leon Edwards. He was a little compromised, a little injured. Now before the end of the year, he will be defending the title for the very first time against Shavkat Rakhmonov, who, look, Shavkat's a savage, man. The dude is dangerous. He's got decent striking. He's tall and rangy for the weight class. But what's so dangerous about Shavkat, he's not really faced any adversity, right? I know in the bout against Jeff Neal, we saw him get clipped a little bit. He had to dig a little bit there. But what I mean by adversity, he hasn't lost. The guy's been on an absolute tear. He's very dangerous. He's a finisher. And whenever you're dealing with a prospect that has not tasted defeat, they are going on a long win streak. They are starting to build some confidence, right? It's like a hurricane. It's starting to kind of develop, and then it's starting to get stronger and stronger and stronger. That's what Shavkat Rakhmonov is right now. He's a hurricane, and we're going to see if Belal Muhammad can put a stop to it because Shavkat, he's a finisher. And whenever you're dealing with a prospect that is, it's one thing if they're winning by decisions, but when they're finishing people, that's scary. When you go in there and you take down Wonderboy Thompson with ease and you're able to sub him, that's impressive because even though Wonderboy is a little bit older, we just saw what he was able to do against Joaquin Buckley before getting finished. He looked great. He looked great in those 2 rounds. So this is a huge fight. This is a massive fight. Like I said, I don't think anyone at 170 right now, the Belal that showed up against Leon, nobody in the division, in my opinion, is beating that guy. Early prediction, I think Belal Muhammad wins a unanimous decision. I think maybe Shavkat takes a round off of Belal, maybe one of the early rounds. He's able to find some success. Unless Shavkat is able to hurt Belal, sub him or something along those lines, I think Belal Muhammad's pace, his pressure, his cardio, his striking has improved. The boxing has gotten a lot better. The way he's able to move forward and just keep you guessing that Habib-like style to where it's like, is he going to shoot? He makes you so reactive, and that's what we saw against Leon. And the thing is, I do expect Shavkat to put up a better fight than Leon because he's got the confidence. He has not tasted defeat yet, and Shavkat's willing to stand his ground, right? And I think that that's the big difference here because everyone's going to go, well, Leon Edwards got decimated by Belal, and, is that going to happen to Shavkat? And it's like, yeah, of course that could happen, but Shavkat's more willing to stand his ground, where Leon likes to kind of operate in space, be all technical, be all smooth, where I don't think Shavkat minds getting into a little bit of a barn burner, and he's going to have to do that in this fight to beat Belal Muhammad. So if there's a finish, I see Shavkat Rakhmonov pulling it off by submission, but I think Belal Muhammad wins a unanimous decision over Shavkat, winning 4 rounds, Shavkat taking a round somewhere in there. Just off of what we've seen, man, it just seems like Belal, when you win the belt, we've heard this, you win the title, your confidence and your skill evolves because you gain a confidence, you gain a composure. You are now, you kind of come into your own a little bit. And I really believe in that. I think Belal Muhammad is he's just on a different level right now. And the way that he's able to fight, people talk about how boring and this and that. Look, you may not like the style that the guy fights at. He's a problem. The way he mixes it together, the improvements with the striking is just going to aid the grappling that much more. Belal's an issue. I think he wins the fight. Moving on. We have Alexandre Pantoja and Kai Asakura. This is crazy. When have we ever seen someone outside of the UFC get signed and go right into a title fight? I mean, we have contenders. We had a guy in Muhammad Mukayev who the UFC did not want to bring back for whatever reasons. We don't really know. There was just some turmoil behind the scenes. It just seemed like they couldn't figure something out. Maybe something happened. There's been a lot of questions about that. But he was a guy that was on a tear. He was a guy that was really positioning himself to possibly be in a title shot conversation, and then they move on from him. And then we hear about the signing of Kai Asakura, which I made a video here on my channel talking about who Kai is because a lot of folks don't know who he is. This guy, he's a good fighter, man. He's a well-rounded guy. He's got good striking, good power in his hands. He's good on the feet. He is a very entertaining fighter, and he's had a very extended career in Rizin. And I know a lot of people may not know too much about Rizin. Manel Kape comes from there. We've seen, Juan Archuleta, a teammate of TJ Dillashaw, has fought there. Kyoji Horiguchi. There are some good fighters that have participated in Rizin, and this guy has showed out. I mean, you are seeing stacked, packed out arenas when Kai Asakura fights on social media. He has a good following, and in terms of his YouTube, this dude is a star in Japan. There's no question about it. That's why the UFC is going all in on this guy, because he's put in the miles, he's put in the time, and yes, he's been on the outside looking in. I just thought maybe we were going to get a title elimination bout for Kai before getting a title shot. I mean, this is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. A guy going from another organization, getting signed by the UFC, which he had fought at bantamweight, and then there were some questions of, is he going to be a bantamweight, a flyweight? Then, some time went by and we heard he will be at flyweight. The minute I heard that, I'm like, he's going to be really close to a title fight, because at bantamweight, we got this long line, we got all this going on, where flyweight, doors wide open. There's a lot of room there. Kai Asakura, I thought he was going to have to get a title eliminator bout, but turns out they're just throwing him right to it. But I can't pick Kai in this fight, man. I don't think I can pick Kai. Maybe my mind will change a little bit closer we get, because again, I'm just going off of the news, reacting right away. Just from what we've seen from Alexandre Pantoja, I believe that he is one of the best flyweights that we have ever seen. And you don't have to like his fighting style, because it's not the most aesthetically pleasing. When I think of Pantoja, I think of a guy that's just gritty. He finds a way to win. Grit and heart is what sets him apart. And I think I just rhymed there. I'm a rapper, man. No, but seriously, the grit and heart of Alexandre Pantoja sets him apart from the rest of the division. Because look, skill for skill, is he the best striker? No. Is he the best grappler? Maybe he's the best grappler, but it just seems like he gets into these dirty, gritty type of fights, and he always finds a way to win. The thing that gives me a little bit of hope, if you are picking Kai Asakura and rooting for him in this fight, we've seen Pantoja squeak by. We've seen him squeak by. We've seen him in some tough fights with Brandon Moreno. We've seen him in some tough fights in the past with Royval. We've seen him in a very close fight against Steve Erceg, where a lot of people thought Erceg won the fight. And we saw Erceg just get KO'd by Kai Kara-France. So it's like, when you're going off of that, there's some hope here, because Kai Asakura, he's good on the feet, he's got power, he's well-rounded, he's dangerous, but I don't know that he has the skill set unique enough to go in there and take out Alexandre Pantoja. Because if we're being honest here, the best fighter, there's some guys in Rizin that have been good, but Manel Kape, going off of the scale that we have here, would be a guy like Manel Kape, who's in the UFC. We've seen how he's been, and as entertaining as I think he is as a striker and as a fighter, he's been kind of right? And that's what we got to go off of, where him and Kai are 1-1, so there's a potential trilogy down the line. But if we're going off of that, Pantoja's a step up in competition to me, man. I think he is. The grit, the tenacity, the confidence, the way that he's just able to blend everything together. He's relentless. He's got power. He's got the grappling. He's got strength. And it just seems like these other flyweights tend to struggle with the strength and with the overwhelming style that Pantoja brings. I think Alexandre Pantoja takes that one. Moving on. Vicente Luque, Nick Diaz. Now, those of you that have been following my channel since the very beginning know that I am a massive Diaz fan. And the guy that got me into the sport, Nick Diaz, right? So anytime I get a Nick Diaz fight announcement, I'm in the grocery store, I'm dropping to my knees, and I'm going, Nick Diaz, like I'm pulling out my Bruce Buffer, like I'm pointing down at the ground. I'm excited to see Nick Diaz fight again. The problem is, guy's 40 years of age. Maybe he's 41. I don't know the age off the top of my head. And it's been a while since we've seen him fight. I believe it was UFC 266. We saw him in the rematch against Robbie Lawler. And there was a lot that went into that with Nick, right? There were some injuries and all these different things because the guy was shredded to the bone. And then he comes into fight week and he looks way out of shape. They had to move it from 170 to 185. And there were a lot of things with the injuries and all this and that. So we don't really know. But what we know is Nick had some moments, but other than that, it didn't look particularly great. And Robbie Lawler is a guy that he's dangerous, he's skilled, and I believe if you threw Robbie Lawler in there with Vicente Luque, he might KO Luque because Luque is very much a kind of a moving heavy bag. He is skilled, he's got good submissions, he does have pretty good striking, but he's there to be hit. And I think if you threw Luque in there with Lawler, I think there's a shot Lawler beats him. But again, I think Lawler's a step ahead of where Nick Diaz is at in terms of where they're at in their careers. And Robbie Lawler has retired, and Nick is still kind of around. And, he's got some miles on him. He's been around for a while, and he's kind of bounced around training camps. We've heard that he's maybe not around the Gracie team, and he's over in Texas doing some other things. So that's very alarming to me because Nick is a guy that he's struggled with some issues in the past. Has he made things comfortable outside of camp to where he can dial in and get himself ready? Because here's the thing, Vicente Luque, he should win this fight in my opinion. As much of a Nick Diaz fan, I'm rooting for Nick Diaz. I want him to win this fight. That would be great. I feel like as fight fans, it would be incredible to see Nick go out there and win. But realistically, Vicente Luque, he's got more left in the tank. He should win this fight. And when we talk about the overall skill set with the Diazes, especially Nick, it was always the pressure boxing, it was the chin, it was the cardio, the submissions. I don't think that he has some crazy submission advantage over Luque. He doesn't have a power advantage over Luque. He doesn't necessarily maybe have a cardio advantage. I don't think so over Luque in this matchup. But what's very good, I guess, if you're a Diaz fan and you pick him to win this fight, is the fact that Luque is very hittable. Vicente Luque is one of the most hittable guys in the entire division. So I know people are like, this is foul, giving Nick a guy like this, give him a guy like Tony, which I kind of agree with you. But look, Vicente Luque is very hittable. This is a winnable fight for Nick Diaz. Do I think he gets it done? I'm rooting for him, but I can't pick with my heart here. Brain is telling me that Luque, he's got a little bit more left in the tank, but granted, from what we saw from him against Joaquin Buckley, that was not an impressive outing. But again, Joaquin Buckley, top of the weight, basically top of the food chain at in the division right now. Nick Diaz, kind of an old man at this point. I don't know, man, but no question, I'm rooting for Nick Diaz. I hope he can pull it off. But the brain, Luque, heart, Nick Diaz, it's going to be interesting. I'm excited to see kind of what Nick we see. If we see a dialed-in Nick Diaz, anything can happen. But if it's the Nick that showed up against Robbie Lawler, I'm not going to like what I'm going to have to witness. Moving on, finally. Gane, Alexander Volkov. Now, I discussed this a little bit when the Saudi Arabia card for UFC 308, or Abu Dhabi card broke for UFC 308 when they announced that this was one of the fights that they had on the main card. Volkov had an injury. They had to move it back to 310 here. This is a great matchup. This is a rematch. We saw it the first time. Gane just had the edge in terms of the speed, and he was able to keep Volkov at range. But what we've seen, Alexander Volkov, man, you can't sleep on this guy. We saw him against Sergey Pavlovich. He's able to switch stances now. He's very comfortable with the long-range striking. He's got a lot of thud on his shots. It's not exactly the quickest of things, but he utilizes good front kicks up the middle. He damages the midsection. He keeps you away from him. And what we've seen is an evolution in the grappling of Volkov. And I believe coming into this fight, we are going to see Volkov try to resort to some of the grappling. We're going to see him try to mix things up and not just stand with Gane, because it's not to say that Volkov can't win that battle. The problem is they're both solid strikers, but Gane is just that much faster. And the problem is in the heavyweight division, man, if you can hit and not get hit, I mean, we've seen that with Tom Aspinall. We've seen Gane do this many times. Unless you're able to clip him like Tuivasa, he's going to pick you apart. He's going to throw those front kicks up the middle. He's going to bounce and dance in and out of range, a lot like kind of like Nasruddin Imavov. There's a lot of similarities in terms of the striking there. I think Gane's speed, I think that his technicalities, the way that this fight will play out. I just think that the speed advantage on the side of Gane is just going to be a little bit too quick, and I think it's going to look very similar to the first meeting between these two, unless Volkov is able to damage the midsection of Gane, mix his shots, take him down, win on control time. I can see that being a possibility for Volkov, but realistically, I see this being a kickboxing fight. I see Gane controlling the distance. I see him darting in and out of range to win a very point-based style victory for in this fight. I think Ciryl Gane gets it done. But I want to hear from you all down in the comments. Like this video. Let me know what you guys think about UFC 310 because I think it's an outstanding main event. I think that this is a pretty decent card. It could always be better, but I think that this is a decent card. Some exciting matchups here and a lot of intrigue, right? Shavkat Rakhmonov. We've been waiting to see him against a stud in the division. Belal's the champ. He's a stud. He's a guy that's well-rounded. I'm excited to see Rakhmonov get challenged in that aspect. I'm excited to see Belal go in there against a finisher, and I'm excited to see if Asakura could go in there and do what really nobody else has had the answer to, and that's to get Pantoja up out of there and win a flyweight title. That'd be crazy. But I want to hear from you all. Subscribe to the channel. Turn on the notification bell so you do not miss an upload. I appreciate you all. See you next time.